Thank you for joining the next in our Let's Talk Avelo webinar series. I'm here with a number of exciting guests from Avelo Dive Centers all around the world, and with our CEO, Aviad Cahana, from Avelo. We're going to give some insights into what it's like to be an Avelo diver and go from a diver and a person who's interested in Avelo all the way up to an Avelo instructor, maybe even an instructor trainer, and become an Avelo Dive Center. At the end of this presentation, you'll be able to answer all of your questions. We'll take questions through the chat, and if you dare, you can also you can ask those questions via speaker. But this is being recorded, and it will be released early next week to the public through YouTube and through our social media channels, through Avelo, Dive Avelo, and at Dive Avelo on Instagram. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Aviad Cahana, who has a few words to say about what's going on at Avelo.
Hello all. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. We've had several webinars in the past introducing the system and explaining what it is. In a nutshell, Avelo was invented to reduce weight first. That was the impetus. The idea was to reduce weight from the scuba industry. And then as we started to look more and more into the characteristics of the systems, we found out that it has tremendous advantages in other areas like buoyancy control and the ease of diving underwater. And all of this is explained in previous webinars. I think this one is really to talk about the experience of the different dive shops and the wonderful people that are working in it. Avelo is expanding, and it's expanding pretty rapidly right now. We have the Avelo Tour in Florida, and we really have experience now with diving the systems and teaching the use of it all over the world. And you will hear more and more from us this year as more ADC come online, as the systems become more and more available through those ADCs and in other locations. ADC, I'm sorry, is an Avelo Dive Center. You'll see more and more availability of that, both in terms of rental and in terms of ownership, which we're going to talk about here soon or later. And with that, I will let you guys talk.
We've got representatives from some of our major Avelo dive centers. In total, we have 8 dive centers right now. But with us this evening, we have Rachel Fallon from Abyss Scuba Diving. She's our newest Avelo instructor trainer. And we'll have everybody introduce themselves in just a second. As soon as I introduce who's on the call, we have Duncan and Stephanie from Dive Friends Bonaire. We have Chelsea and David from Catalina Diver Supply. And Peter's hiding in the wings there, but we're excited to have him too. And at some point, if Ross comes on, we should have Ross available to talk with us tonight too. He might be on a boat. But without further ado, if you could unmute if you're speaking and give us a go. Would you tell us who you are and how you first heard about Avelo? Maybe let's start with Rachel.
Hi guys, my name is Rachel. I'm the General Manager at Abyss Scuba Diving in Sydney, Australia. It was a couple of years ago that we saw Avelo out and about, me and my dad, so that's Peter Letts, who's hiding there. We saw some stuff online about it, and we're always looking for new innovations to change the way we do things at Abyss. Some of them good, some of them not so good. So we thought we better go check this out and see what it's all about. So we flew over to Hawaii last year, about 12 months ago now, and gave the system a go. And I'll be honest, after the first 2 dives, Dad was like, I'm not really sure about this. He's been diving for many, many years. He's now retired. And he wasn't sold on it after 2 dives, but the 3rd dive was when it really hit home for him and he realized how great it was. I liked it straight away after the first 2 dives, but yeah, it took 3 for him to get it. We went back to the hotel and thought, should we bring this to Australia and get it out there? And it was pretty much a no-brainer. We thought it's going to change the industry. It's going to keep people diving that struggle out of the water. it's going to make people more comfortable in the water. So we brought it back to Australia last December, and we've been firing along since then.
It's possibly going to be a common thread, but I'm curious to see at Dive Friends Bonaire, you were the first Avelo Dive Center to come on board outside of Maui. Can you talk to us about your journey and who you are and why did you get into this?
I guess I can start. I'm Stephanie. I'm an instructor at Dive Friends Bonaire, down in the Dutch Caribbean, for people that don't know exactly where Bonaire is. I heard about it through the shop. Our director and our retail manager had learned about it, I believe, through DEMA. They'd gone out to Hawaii to check out the system and signed on. They were hooked. Brought it to us in September of last year. We were the very first international hub outside of Hawaii to bring the Avelo system on board. And we've been teaching rad courses. We've got 5 instructors on board with our team, and then 2 Avelo technicians. And our Avelo instructors have also gotten sort of an intro to tech class since, so that we can help with the maintenance of the gear.
Do you want to add anything, Duncan?
No, that's exactly how it happened. Our retail manager and our director tried it, were super enthusiastic, and then brought it to our shop. And yeah, it's been really nice to dive this system. I was hooked from the beginning, and the more you dive it, the easier it gets and the more comfortable you get with it. It's yeah, it's been really nice to be involved in such an early stage in a project like this. Absolutely.
We have our first in the continental US, Catalina Diver Supply, here with us, David and Chelsea. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your background and what made you bring Avelo to Catalina?
Go for it, David.
It's
It's your baby.
Thanks, Charles. I got involved. I guess I checked it out over about 2.5 years ago, and started doing a little research about it. Thought it was really interesting. However, not being the instructor in our shop and having a bunch of instructors working with every day, most of them just thought it was just going to be a fad. It was nothing to check out. Then Chelsea and I actually went to DEMA 2 years ago, and we evaluated it there and thought that maybe there was something here that we should move into or look at. And then we had the opportunity to go to Hawaii and dive it, and had took a couple of people along with me, and we fell in love with it from the first dive. We thought it was great. Definitely believed that it was going to revolutionize the industry. And wanted to get involved. So we kept moving the ball forward. And then we've launched last October. We have, I think it's now 6-7 instructors we have at the shop. I think we're at 7 now. And we just had a very successful scuba show. We sold a bunch of rads, 34 rads at the show. So they're now coming in, and we're excited and moving forward with it.
Thank you. It's pretty exciting to have a global presence. Is Ross from Rainbow Reef on the call?
Can you see me now?
There you are.
Yay! I love technology. My phone was connected to my car.
That's exciting.
So I couldn't. Anyway.
You're here
yeah,
now.
It's good to see you all. And I've actually been listening in. So it's great to see you all. It's great to hear you all. I believe the question afoot or a fin is what brought us to Avelo?
And who you are.
Oh, and who I am. So my name is Ross. I am a PADI course director in the Florida Keys. We keep pretty busy. We've got lots of boats, lots of people that come in. And I'm now an Avelo instructor trainer, which was really cool. I loved working with Aviad and Jay and making everything happen. It's just the Avelo team it's a family. It's a wonderful group of people. So just being able to be part of that, even in my small slice, has been great.
Thank you. So everyone, I think, talks about the experience of diving Avelo, and you all tried it and then you became certified as Avelo divers. So why did you bring it to your shop? What specifically made you go, I need to now not just be a diver in this, I need to become an instructor, and I really want to champion this at my dive center?
Well, flat out, I wholeheartedly believe this is going to be an industry game changer. But I recently said to one of my IDC candidates, yeah, it's kind of like, when we moved from the horse collar to the BC, and the guy said, what's a horse collar? So I'm envisioning a world where what's a BC is going to take place. So that said, the other reason is we do all of our diving on boats. So getting back on a boat with 70 pounds of lead on my back, I mean, I know I may not look all this old, but it's just not that fun to get on the boat anymore. So almost cutting that in half just with what I have to get up on a ladder on the boat. I nearly fell onto the bed of the boat because I like jumped off of the platform because it was so much lighter than what I was used to. And we take a few hundred people diving every day. So the amount of fuel that we use simply because of the amount of weight that's on those boats, I'm envisioning a world of difference.
I know both Chelsea and Rachel like to compete for their steps. I think Sydney wins out on their steps, but I don't know how much your unique shore diving environments played in your thinking about the Avelo system.
Yeah, I think, automatically when you mention California, the whole cold water environment comes into play. And there's so many people that live in California and travel elsewhere just to get away from the weight and the intricacies that shore diving with the weight brings in. So Avelo changes obviously all of that. And everybody likes to ask the dry suit question. It still has the wow factor. And it's still doable and it's way lighter. So it's hard to justify going back to standard when you have the option to be diving Avelo.
Yeah, we're finding that once the customers use the Avelo, they don't want to dive standard at all. Be it somebody that's just learnt to dive. Had a guy the other week, he just learnt, and then on the Tuesday, the Monday after, he came back and did an Avelo, and he was like, that's it, I'm only going to dive Avelo. I never thought about the fuel on the boat. That's interesting to think about. Never thought about that. And to begin with, it was all about out of the water for me. It was carrying the gear. But now it's actually all about in the water. It's just so much like, obviously I've got good buoyancy. I've done a fair amount of diving, but it makes it so much easier to move through the water column without the clutter of all the gear that we've grown to carry more and more stuff. So that's a good thing for me now.
So we've touched a little bit on how we have a RAD, or recreational Avelo diver specialty course, and everyone enters into that. You just talked about a student who went from open water and then did RAD and doesn't want to do anything else again. Could you talk a little bit about how you run the certification at your shops? Because everybody has unique environments. And if you're running a second day of diving, why do you recommend that?
So we do the PADI open water certification, and it's a 2-day program. They go to the pool in the morning and the ocean in the afternoon, and the second day they go out and do 3 ocean dives. On that second day, we do a max of 4 people per instructor. So we have some extra instructors there that aren't in the ratios as such, and that instructor will use Avelo gear on the last dive. And the students are surprised at how easy they walk up the hill. I feel like we've got more steps than Catalina has. Walk up the hill after the dives, and they want to feel the gear and put it on their backs. After they've done that, pretty much straight away they say, we need to do this, and then they can come back and do the RAD certification after. So we used to sell a lot of PADI advanced open water, what we're still doing, but now a lot of them are saying, I would like to do the RAD first and then do my advanced course in the Avelo gear.
David, would you like to talk about the specialty programs you offer at Catalina?
Yeah, so we're PADI 5-star resort. We offer all the specialties, all the courses. We've been doing a little differently. We've been actually just marketing and selling rads. We haven't piggybacked them yet with the PADI courses. It's one thing that we're considering doing and looking at. But right now we're just selling the rads and doing and selling it as a specialty.
Yeah, so in Bonaire, we've come up with a couple of different packages. We do the RAD course, which is a 1 day. Anytime anyone asks me about it, I always really strongly recommend we have a 2-day option and a 3-day option. And I love telling them because like dive 1 is your first dive in the gear. It's messy. Dive 2, you start getting used to it, but I'm running scenarios for you as your instructor and I'm going to make it messy. And then we're going to give you all of this incredible feedback from the integrated computers that come with the system, because I can pinpoint exactly when they were perfectly neutral. I'm like, okay, so right after we did this skill, look what happened to your breathing rate. Look what happened here on the graphs that we can show them and can give them like, that's the feeling you're chasing tomorrow. So remember what that felt like. This is how many pumps of water it took. This is the amount of weighting we put on you. So tomorrow we're going to come back and there's no skills and we're just going to let you play with it and let you experience it. And I really love getting those customers coming in on our 2- and 3-day programs because it's just night and day for them when they get to just exist on the system and we just go for a fun dive. I'm like, I want you to wander. I want you to change depths. I want you to, and I love the shallows here in Bonaire. And that's usually a very difficult place for newer divers to maintain their buoyancy. I'm talking 2 or 3 meters of water, so 6, 7, 8 feet of water. And all of a sudden they can. And they are just amazed with themselves because they've never been able to spend that much time in that depth of water coming in. And like, it's, yeah. So I really appreciate that we've created these different package deals for them here in Bonaire.
That's all great and different approaches. Ross, I know you were saying you have a rad diver or rad certified diver on every boat, and you have what, 6 boats there?
8.
8 boats, even worse than 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people come and they get certified and they continue to dive there. So how do people continue to dive Avelo at Rainbow Reef? Is there a rental program? How are people accessing the equipment and what's their experience like?
Yeah, so I have now about 25 certified rad divers on staff. So I strongly encourage them to go out, dive the unit, because it's about seeing it. You know, if you want people to talk about it, put it on the boats. And invariably, everything that we were told, you know, if you put it on a boat, they're going to ask you, what is this crazy thing? And so even just my staff, I train them up enough to talk about, answer the questions. What are the points? Why are we diving rad? And then we've got a 1-day and a 2-day program. The Keys is a destination. So one of the harder things is to get them to stay. But if we know that they're staying, we do a 1-day rad, we do a 2-day rad for the same reasons, and show them the profile, and it just blows their mind. And then we actually do a 1 trip, 2 trip, 3 trip, because sometimes we do have a night dive rental package that everything, and we set it up so that there's always an Avelo guide. Doesn't necessarily mean that guide that's on my staff has to be in Avelo. If they can be, they will be. But if we've got, you know, too many units that are out, then my units are taken up. So my diver or my instructor is grudgingly in a balloon. That's what they call the BC now. And then they get to dive it. So my instructors will actually bring them the gear. They will set it up, not the instructors, the rad students. And then when they're done, they'll bring it back. And then my guides will actually break it down and wash it for them.
That's very involved.
Does water temp affect the Avelo purpose? Yes, it is. It is. We've been making this up as we go. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I've only been teaching this since March. I've done about 50 rads already, and which means my staff has also watched me teach it a lot. which has been kind of cool because, you know, it has been, oh, it's Ross, the course director. He doesn't get on the boats. And now I say, no, guess what, guys? I'm still a diver too. I just don't dive with a balloon on my back.
Those are all great insights. So now that you've taken it and you get to dive it a little bit more, people might want to become Avelo instructors. Rachel and Ross, do you want to take on what it's like to become an Avelo Pro and why you guys chose to do that?
You first.
So yeah, we're based in Sydney, and to become an Avelo Pro, you obviously need to be an instructor to begin with. And you need to be quite an experienced instructor. So it can't be just a new instructor that's got 10 certs under their belt. So the requirements are all written on our website and also written on Avelo's website. So I won't go through all of that. After that, they need to have 10 dives on the unit. So they're comfortable in actually diving that particular unit, comfortable downloading their dives, looking at their profiles, etc. And then they shadow a course. So I'll teach a course and they'll actually sit and watch me teaching it. And then there's 3 days after that for the IDC where it's, you know, they do some presentations, listen to some presentations in the classroom. They do some presentations in the classroom, go through all their skills out in the ocean, and then actually go through teaching the skills as well. So it's pretty much a 4-day program to become an Avelo Pro, as long as you've got them prerequisites there as well.
And I have just recently put together, so we do teach a lot of IDCs, and I recently had a candidate reach out and say, hey, I'd like to do this Avelo Pro thing. I'm not RAD certified. Can we make it happen in the period of time that I am going to be down there? So I built a program because why not? They're going to be instructors. So they're going to do their PADI IDC and then go directly into, they're going to start with the RAD before the PADI IDC one day, then go directly into the IDC. Then I'm going to be able to actually do some of the MSDT prep while they're in Avelo. Then they're going to do a shadow and get another, at that point, 6 dives, and then do the 3-day Avelo Pro, which is a little bit different than, and Rachel and I both are heavily PADI indoctrinated. I think I've got a tattoo on my body somewhere that says PADI, although I can't find it. But it is still very much talking about the unit. The instructor course is as much informative on what are the physics behind the tank, what are the physics behind the breathing, what is different that they're going to ask about because they want to know and they need to know. So we need to be able to empower the instructors that are going to be out there as Avelo Pros to be able to actually talk Avelo and talk the change, the difference, the why we're doing this instead of putting a BC on.
As instructors, can you talk to how it's different to teach divers on the Avelo system than while on stand? I know you're edging than while on standard.
So and Aviad just asked if I could show the tattoo. I don't think I can find it. But I'm definitely going to have it tattooed over. No, I'm not. The difference between, so as open water, so anybody that's an open water scuba instructor knows that you are forever counting your students. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are they there? Then you're forever counting your students and you try to turn your back because you got to be able to let them dive without you there at some point. And so you turn around and you go, please be there, 1, 2, 3. And invariably, sometimes there's a 4 that's going up or a 4 that's going down. Well, that never happens with Avelo. It can't, there's no balloon on their back. So you, first of all, you know where your students are going to be. The other really wonderful thing, yes, and let's, all disclaimers out there, the first 5 minutes are probably the most challenging of the dives. We all talked about the fact that or we've already talked about the fact that, yeah, the first dive, you're diving it because people want to dive it like a BC. It's what they know. So the fewer the dives they have, almost the easier it is. And to the point, what's the difference between this? Whoever the invariable, they say that it takes approximately 10 dives to get used to every one new piece of gear. The most difficult being the balloon that's on your back. Well, we've omitted that. So now you get to talk about the breathing. Now you get to talk about the are we going to be a yoga diver or a shark diver? It doesn't matter anymore because now we get to be a diver. Actually, it's almost like we get to be a swimmer underwater, but we can breathe. And letting them find their sweet spot is so much faster than finding the sweet spot with a balloon, a BC.
That is a very thorough and I think accurate answer. I think the other instructors will agree to that. If you have any more to add to that, you're certainly welcome to chime in. I know there's also a lot to the equipment, such as maintenance. And as an Avelo Dive Center, it's important to keep your maintenance, your hydros and your visual inspections up to par and to have an Avelo technician on hand. That's part of what makes you an Avelo Dive Center. Catalina Divers Supply has a Bob. And Ross, I think, are you your Avelo technician there?
We have now added myself and I have an Eddie. So we actually have two, mainly because I already have a lot of hats. And with as many instructors and rads that we do, we like to keep things as soon as they get out of the water, they get rinsed, they get put away, they get charged, any and all of the above.
And Stephanie, Dive Friends Bonaire recently had a crash course in the technical side of things. Do you or Duncan want to talk about how important it is to have people who understand the equipment?
Duncan, you want to take one?
No.
Oh, we're not.
Or Rachel can
can
jump
take it.
in because they have a Jordan. Is Jordan
Yeah.
still your technician there, Rachel? So.
Yeah, we have two Avelo technicians that are officially trained as technicians. And then Aviad and Brett, who's one of Avelo's chief technicians, actually came to Bonaire a few weeks ago to kind of oversee some of the equipment details that are kind of specific to our incredibly warm climate in Bonaire. And while they were here, they essentially did technician light for all 5 of our instructors. So we got troubleshooting, we got information on if you see this happening, this is what you tell the technician, the part that needs to be touched up. This is how you can predict or prevent issues. This is how you can do a flow check on some of the gear to make sure that the pump is operating within the correct parameters. And it's been incredibly helppful. I diagnosed a problem a couple of days ago, handed it off to the technician with exactly what was going on. And so he has opened up one part and it's somewhere in there and makes it a lot faster for him. I can run flow rate checks on my own gear and on my students' gear to make sure that the pump is operating where it's supposed to be. So it's been very, very helpful for us here.
That is
absolutely.
Duncan?
Here's Duncan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like Scott said, we could, right away after we got that course, we could identify the problem so much easier. And it saves us a lot of time for the technician as well, because they don't have to look for it. And yeah, they can solve the problem much faster that way. Absolutely.
And I was just going to jump in and say that one of the reassuring things, this is a new technology. So things are going to happen. The more that it gets used in different climates and different areas and different types of water, the more specifics we're going to see. And one of the most reassuring things about working with Aviad and Brett and Jay is that they address things not within the day, almost within the hour. When you say, hey, I see this, I haven't seen this before. then they're on top of it. They came down here within a couple of weeks to address something right before or right after going to Bonaire, right before going somewhere else, to make sure that, first of all, we feel confident and comfortable in the gear that we're training in the new gear, because we are the forefront saying, hey, we believe in it, so should you. And they are backing us up in the why and the how you can and should believe in it. So bravo to the team. They're quite remarkable.
We love you too, Ross. We love all of you guys. And if you're interested in becoming an Avelo Pro or getting more involved, these 3 dive centers, Catalina Diver Supply, Abyss Scuba Diving, and Dive Friends Bonaire, and Rainbow Reef, 4 dive centers. You know me and the numbers, Ross.
I know.
Are all centers, regional centers, where you can advance your career in Avelo and get experience with these different aspects, becoming an Avelo Pro, and then maybe even working into some of these technician things. So if you're looking to go forward with them, they're definitely part of our Avelo tribe. How does it feel to be part of the tribe?
I haven't come up with my work cry yet.
Okay.
I'm working on it.
We love having you guys as part of the family. This is an opportunity also for you guys to ask each other questions. And we have a couple of questions that have been answered in the chat window I wanted to address. Ross, I know that you probably dive the most nitrox of these shops. I think in
Yes.
Avelo, you dive exclusively nitrox. Is that right?
My Avelo tanks are exclusively 31%, mainly so we can go to 112 feet. We don't need to, but because we spend the majority of time at 50 to 60 feet, especially for the first dive, and to be perfectly honest, it just works out for my fill station that it is easier with the din and everything to fill them to 31%. I have had no problem. I've actually had no kickback whatsoever when I asked, and I did have one person that I said, hey, by the way, are you nitrox certified? No, but I've always wanted to be. I can help with that. So that's actually been something that's actually been beneficial, because it allows us not only that extra margin of safety, but it just is one more thing that they go, oh, and when you dive this, you get this, because usually there is an additional charge for nitrox. So in this case, there's not.
Dive Friends, are you running nitrox out there? No,
All
you're
of our-
shallow.
All of our Avelo tanks are air right now. The best part of Bonaire is 15 meters, 45 feet and up. And so the way our fill station is set up, it made more sense to keep them on air for the time being. And we do have a much older dive community here, and a lot of them were kind of pre-nitrox. They've been diving for 45 years. They've never needed it before. So we decided to eliminate that barrier. When we increase the number of Avelo tanks that we have, it is something that we've considered, but currently all of our Avelo tanks are filled with air.
Awesome. There's a question also about profile statistics that Abyss showed, and when is that going to become accessible for divers? There is an Avelo dive log coming out. Should be sometime at the beginning of next week. And I know Aviad's on the call, and he probably wants to jump in and speak to the profile question.
Yeah, I'll just answer the question, and I'll let you all, because you're teaching it every day. There's no need for an Avelo specific profile, just like there's no need for analytics on a phone. You can just dive it and you never know. But we found a way to record data that, because of the type of the equipment that we are providing, we can log data that was never logged before and cannot be logged with a standard BCD. The root of that is that for you to know what your buoyancy status is underwater, is you need to know the forces that operate on a diver, either gravity or buoyancy. And with a BCD, it's unrecordable, because the amount of air in a BCD not only is not known, it cannot be known because of multiple variables in how the thermodynamics of the air in that system behave. With us, it's a hydraulic system. So we know how much water is in the tank, and we can actually compare that to the rest of the forces that operate on you. So essentially, we're tracking the forces on a diver through the entire dive. What it does, this is just the data. We just collect that data. The interpretation of the data was born a year after the system was actually, we started diving with it, and we noticed a correlation between the forces that operate on a diver relative to your comfortable breathing range, which is what you do with your lungs when you just normally breathe. And the closer you are to the comfortable breathing range, the better the dive is, the more efficient you are, the longer dive you do. And it's captured in a way that now you can show every diver at the end of the dive, not only what they're doing, but how to become better. That's where the dive profiling statistics, and we do it after every dive. So that's my way to explain it. And now I'll shut up and I will let you guys, talk about it. I'll disappear here.
And also, I'd love to hear how students respond to their dive profiles when you go over them after their dives.
I'll talk about it a little bit because this is kind of my favorite part of the whole system. No offense on any of the other cool stuff you did there, Aviad, but
Nah.
I really like the analytics and the analyzing, and I have found that the faster that you can show a student their profile, the more beneficial, the more that they benefit from it. It is so refined, and it is so exact in its way to pinpoint what they did, what they should have done, and where or how far away they were from being comfortable, and how they could have fixed that. So for me, that I think has shortened that 10 dive time frame. It's still, obviously, it takes a couple dives for students to get adjusted to it, but the quicker that they can see their profiles and understand the profiles, the faster that they can adjust to the new system. And I think what Ross kind of touched on earlier, but the biggest adjustment I've found in students, especially with experience, is breaking habits that they have accumulated in standard scuba diving. So the faster that you can show them that running the pump does not work like an inflate or a deflate button, and the faster they can rid that out of their minds, then the quicker they adjust to the actual maximization of the system itself.
Does anyone want to add to
Sure,
dive profiles?
so I have to admit, the first time that I saw it, they brought me out to Maui. I was there with the owner, and they were like, and now we're going to look at this profile. I'm like, oh, please. Am I seriously going to have to look at this? And oh, please. Okay, fine. We're going to sign logbooks too. And we're going to swap phone numbers and all that kind of good stuff. And then they meticulously went piece by piece, almost breath by breath, and said, and this is what you were doing, and this is what you were thinking. And my first thought was, oh my God, this is kind of freaky. And then I started to learn how to read them the way that they were showing us to do it. And it's like an insight. If only we could have this kind of an insight to all of our students' minds. I mean, we're part of my IDC. We try to teach how to read the student before they even get into the water, just by where they sit in the classroom. Well, this does it minutely to the point where you can literally make somebody a better diver that is already a professional, just by showing them the profile. Just by showing them, right now, you were probably thinking about something that you don't normally think of because you're a new gear. Yeah, you're right. That's exactly what I was doing. And they think that you're clairvoyant. You're not. You're just Aviad for about 5 minutes, and then it's all done. Because I don't know how he makes this stuff up, but it's incredible. But to be able to show that level of minute detail of what's actually physiologically going on both with the lungs, with the mind, with the unit, and then tying it all together. So I've started taking my instructors that have been on the units for like 20, 30 dives and showing them their original dive versus their dive profile, like when they do a shadow, and it blows their minds because they realize that they've actually altered the way not only that they dive the Avelo, but that they dive a BC based off of the way that they were able to better themselves when they dived the Avelo. By the way, hi Claire.
Yeah, for me, it's been a really great tool because a lot of our Avelo divers are seasoned divers. And one of the big questions we get is, well, what's the point of doing the rad if I'm going to have to go back to standard? Like there's not that many places I can do it, or I'm only in Bonaire on holiday. And I can use that profile to show them the repercussions. Like this, what you're learning about yourself from seeing your profile can be taken back to standard scuba. I learned about myself. I learned apparently I've been diving too buoyant. And so I started decreasing a little bit of my buoyancy, even on my standard gear, and my sac rate's getting better on standard. And I was already a professional diver with over 1,000 dives. And I still saw improvements to my dive style on standard because of what I learned about myself using the profiles that are achieved through the Avelo gear.
Agreed.
And for people who want a little more context, Aviad was talking about the profiles and how we get those. I don't know if we've mentioned we have dive computers with the Avelo mode on them that capture this data. And we have those on Shearwater and Scuba Pro computers for training. And Shearwater is publicly releasing and making the Avelo mode accessible next week. So people will be able to buy it through their Shearwater dealers and get the magic unlock code.
Right arm.
Yeah,
Aviad, there's a question about how to bring the Avelo system to New Zealand in the chatty chat.
that's something that we'll take it in more detail after this because we need to talk to Abyss a bit. But we apparently the system is okay. It looks like it's gonna go through the New Zealand authority. You write that you need the 10 dives. You need to shadow one rad in one of those 10 dives. So 2 of the dives that you'll do on your rad training count. You'll want to do, honestly, you want to do as many dives as you can. The 10 is the bare minimum. You do want to shadow one more rad. When you do your rad, even if you're a very experienced instructor, you're in a student mode. You will want to, for your sake and for our sake, you want to shadow one of those rads, and it's part of the standard. You do need to have technicians in the shop, at least one, and all of this can be done at Abyss, or will be able to be done in Abyss, and that's more of a conversation for Rachel. Rachel, do you want to add more details to this?
So I've been talking to Claire a little bit already, but we've got a dive show coming up in September in Sydney. So we will be running an instructor program then. The next instructor program we are running is going to be on Magnetic Island. So it will be our first store on the Great Barrier Reef that will be operating. They'll be running rad courses after we do that course with them in August. You'll be able to go up there and do the course, or you'll be able to go up there and rent the gear and dive the Great Barrier Reef. That's pretty exciting. And then in September will be the next instructor program to match up with that dive show. And so we've got it scheduled that you can do your rad prior to the dive show, and then maybe come and see some of the dive show, not all of it, and then get some dives done on them days as well, and then do the instructor program straight after.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Going to keep me busy and in Sydney a bit, I think. Hi, Ross.
Hey, Claire. We did our CDTC together a couple of years ago.
Years ago.
Yeah.
Just a few.
Just one or two.
Yeah, I wish.
I don't
You
know
could
if-
always come to Key Largo and play.
That's a long, long way away.
I
One day.
know.
A few days travel, I think.
Yeah, right.
Sydney's just a jump over the ditch.
I know. I know.
I don't know if you can see, but I'm sharing an Avelo Dive Center screen to give a little context for people as to where we're at. See, New Zealand's just right there next to Sydney. So Claire can just pop over there for a couple of months and she'll be great. You can see we also have Planeta Azul in Murcia, Spain is an Avelo Dive Center. And that is our current European destination. They are asleep right now. I gave them a pass for this webinar and promised them at some point we'll hold a different time so that Europe can participate. We also have some centers in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, and Oahu Travel Divers, and we will be opening a destination in the Red Sea here at the end of the year. So there is a lot going on, and as you can see, the Great Barrier Reef is getting ready to rock up in Australia. Can you tell us those dates again, Rachel? You mentioned at the end of August.
Yeah, so we're doing a week trip there. You can do as much or as little as you want of it. So we've got the RAD happening on Monday, the 19th of August, I think it is. And then the instructor program's happening after that. But people can just go and dive the Wreck of the Yongala and do the museum there and do some shore dives off Magnetic Island as well. So we've got that trip together, and I think it's going to go up on the Avelo webpage in the next few days.
We're getting there, Rachel.
Thanks,
We sort of got sidetracked with this big shearwater launch of the Avelo mode. But yes, we'll be happy to share that. Abyss does great stuff. And if you haven't been on a trip with them, their team is really professional and fun to interact with as well. All of these people are. I've gotten to be in the water with everybody except Bonaire. I'm sorry. I'll be out there someday.
Spain. You still need to go to Spain, Jennifer.
Yes, I know. Neum first.
Neom first.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're opening more and more destinations, and we are seeing tremendous uptake. Now that the tour in Florida started, there's a lot, and you can expect to see more and more of this in every region that it gets to, simply because it goes beyond the scuba industry, as you all know, is free of politics at all. There's no competition. There's only collaborations. And we bring something new to the table in that regard because we are really working with everybody. We reached out, the fact that both Shearwater and Scuba Pro, and there will be some announcement more towards the end of the year about more of that. We're kind of bridging the gap because we're touching the most important part of the scuba industry. We're touching both the tank and the BCD. Essentially, it's a different system. I think those that teach it now understand that it's essentially a parallel universe in terms of the scuba ecosystem. And there's a transition, but the point of all of this is it's worth getting involved now because there is a learning curve, especially at the professional level, and at the dive shop level. And that learning curve, there's nothing that replaces the time and the experience with it, and learning how to teach it and learning how to talk to people and how to identify who is the diver that is the current Avelo diver. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about it from what you've seen from the audience, from the people that enjoy it. And I really want you, the instructors, to talk more about the need for watermanship, both for Avelo and the swimming and what scuba is today versus what scuba is with Avelo, specifically in the context of watermanship.
Here in Bonaire, we definitely have a much older generation of divers. And so we've had to really kind of change our marketing strategy to make sure that divers still understand the physicality of the system. Avelo has its easier parts, like it is still lighter to carry. It is much, much simpler underwater. However, there is still some level of physical fitness required of it. Particularly when it comes to being at the surface. A lot of our divers are very used to, you blow up your BCD, you float your way out to where you go, you dump your BCD, you fall down into the ocean and you go on your dive. We're having to kind of talk with some of our divers, like, all right, we need to be able to swim with the gear, because the Avelo system gives you swimmer's buoyancy. So instead of floating chest high, you float about eye level. It's the only time where I've actually wanted to have my snorkel with me at all times. And so we talked to our divers a little bit about, like, okay, like, are you comfortable snorkeling? Are you comfortable with, duck diving, essentially? Because to get started on the system, you don't get to dump 8 pounds of positively buoyant air and just fall underwater. We swim underwater. So our dive shop in particular has changed kind of our questions when people tell us that they're interested in the system. Bonaire is relatively simple diving. It tends to bring in a different type of diver than the kind of person who might show up in Catalina or in Sydney, where the diving is a bit more challenging than what we have. So we have a new swim test that we are instating before our divers begin their rad course, and just a slightly different way of chatting with them to discuss their interest in the course. Like, okay, well, are you comfortable doing this? Are you comfortable with this kind of swimming? To make sure that Avelo is a good fit for that diver.
We teach a lot of freediving. We teach a lot of freediving courses as well, and I think it's that perfect cross. Like, freedivers get into the water and they've got swimmer's buoyancy. They're on the surface, they're fine. So it's them kind of people that love the ocean, that love the adventure. For us, it's about walking. They can go to different dive sites that they can walk into that they generally couldn't have walked into before. But if you get somebody come in that is very, very uncomfortable in the water, and probably very uncomfortable scuba diver as well, it's probably not right for them. It's for somebody that's comfortable in the water. Scuba diving has done maybe a bit of scuba diving. As I said, the student that just learnt loved it. Free divers love it. It's perfect for them kind of people.
Yeah, and something that we're coming across is because we get a lot of we get every gamut because we're all on boats. So we get the ones that have a hard time getting up on a boat because they've got to carry a BC. We've got the ones that are strong and able to do it, and especially with all the experienced divers. Experienced divers, like I said before, you got to teach them how not to dive a BCD. But what I've been doing, and right now I've been the only point person, and myself and my other 2 course directors that are instructors, and we're in the same office together. So we're able to sort of vet, would you say that you are an okay swimmer, a good swimmer, or a strong swimmer? Especially when it's somebody in, no offense, I'm in my 50s, 60s, 70s, because we're getting a lot of those especially out of the New England area. There are a lot of guys that are coming down. They've been diving. They're rah. They've got their Ziegel BCD. They're going to put 40 pounds of weight on as well as dive a 120 steel. And that's the way they're going to go. Well, they're used to that kind of stuff. So we try to vet and find out how they dive in the first place. So at the very least, we're forewarned. It doesn't always mean we're forearmed, but we're forewarned because people where we are right now, I mean, our water is almost 90 degrees Celsius right now. So we're not in any kind of BC at all. I'm sorry, any kind of wetsuit at all. If anything else, yeah, Fahrenheit. I'm trying to be obvious. 9 degrees Fahrenheit, and my instructors, all of the divers, they're not in wetsuits. So we're actually having to use buoyancy pads on the back of the jetpack, and in some cases over buoyant them just so that we can put like 2 pounds in the back of the tank just to trim them out. I mean, the beauty of it is we're talking about 1 or 2 pounds, not 15 to 20. And it's kind of it's like a sauce. It's like a good bolognese or something. You're going to season it until it's just right. But you do have to know and forewarn, like, you were saying down in Bonaire, most of the ones that have been coming to me that are not instructors are in their 60s and 70s because they hear that it's lighter. That's what they hear. Yes, it is lighter, but you still got to be a strong swimmer.
I think that we have a almost the complete opposite problem.
Yeah.
We have we have a very destination dive site draw, and it seems like we get a ton of inexperienced divers that, you know, will also travel the world and dive in Hawaii and dive in Thailand and dive in Belize and dive in all these like bucket list places, and they don't realize that Catalina is the only one that's cold water. So we actually are trying to implement a system where we get them to dive in cold water on standard prior, so that they can understand what that feels like before they go over to Avelo, because of that drastic difference from all of their other previous dives. And a lot of it is the increased respiration on the initial jump in. They get into the water and they're just not used to that cold water shock. And especially now with our temperature, our land temperatures increasing, we didn't start Avelo till October of last year. So we went into the winter with it, where land and sea temperatures were similar. But now when we're going to get hot days and cold water, you go from sweating in a 7 mil wetsuit to 100-yard walk to the ocean to immediate shock of cold water, and that breathing just totally throws them off. So we've had to over explain that initial spike in sac rate and how that affects their buoyancy and their weighting on that initial descent. So it's been, yeah, that's been an interesting route that I don't think that any of us really considered.
So do you put like weight at the bottom of the steps there?
Yes, we actually, what we've been trying out is we'll bring a float out to our buoys. So we underweight them getting into the water, and we have either some kind of bag or clip-ons attached to our descent lines or things like that, that we can either add to them at the top of the lines or the bottom of the lines based on what that initial jump in is. And that way, when they get into the water, they are a little bit more positive, just because they're doing this thing. And then sometimes plenty of my students, especially on the 2-day or 3-day, you know, obviously that helps them quite a bit, but plenty of my students, we have to get down the lines and spend 2 or 3 or 5 minutes there just gaining their breathing back to normal before we can even let go. And they realize, oh, I am neutral. You know, they keep thinking that they're positive, that they need to run the pump just because of their increased respiration on the initial descent. So yeah, that's been an interesting one. But we, you know, basically all of our students need weight. So that's kind of nice, is that we've got that little bit of a realm to add to them.
Sure.
So how much weight do you take with you on the water then, if you have like 4 students?
We've been doing a little bit smaller classes. So
Okay.
we'll usually do 2 to 1, but I'll usually carry maybe like 2 or 3 pounds per student in a bag.
Okay. No,
So nothing crazy, but you know, enough that it helps. And then I can dive, you know, slightly over and then, you know, pass off what I need, but it's worked out quite well.
And see, we almost have the opposite, where on our boats, yeah, sure, they're gonna hyperventilate just because they're excited and everything at the beginning of the dive. But then I try to calm them down while they're hanging onto the tagline, and I can literally just leave weights on the back of the boat. And then if they don't, hey, Captain, can you hand me a 2-pounder? Yeah, sure, got you. I'm like, all right. Susie knows.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
She knows.
This is great. I love having the dialogue and conversation and everybody getting to meet. I want to make sure we take care of everybody's questions. So if you've been holding back on questions, enter them in the chat, jump in on the video call here. Make sure we get a chance to answer those questions and hear you.
I'm a Cancer. I'm sensitive.
Is that how that works?
I'm just answering your question.
But it's exciting to have everybody on the call here. Our next Let's Talk Avelo is going to be in September. So at the end of the season. So everyone's going to get out there and dive this summer. Hopefully with one of these great dive centers, you can visit us at diveavelo.com. You can find our dive centers there. You can also check out the Avelo tour where those destinations are. We are adding dates to that. I need to check. Ben Larson is the travel director running that. I need to check with him and see if we have any additional dates to add to the site. But we do list our events there as well, and you can follow us on the socials to keep up to date with that as well. So those are some of the things that are coming down the pipeline. And in our next Avelo, Let's Talk Avelo, we're going to talk a little bit about more new things at Avelo, but we're going to talk specifically with our education directors and our chief technicians. So you'll get to hear from them. So we'll give you guys a little bit of a break. You can maybe be in the audience and ask questions of Brett and Jay. Do I see any other questions or hands up in the audience? And is there anything else you guys want to ask each other as Avelo Dive Centers? No, you're all good. You know everything there is to know about Avelo.
No, actually, I think the beauty of it is, as much as it's a simple new way of diving, we're still making this up as we go, and we're able to tailor it. I mean, we've just heard in Catalina the way that they do it, and in Australia the way that they do it, here the way that we do it. We're all finding our own way to meet the same standard because it warrants itself to different styles. And that again is the beauty of the unit itself, and the fact that the openness with which Jay and Aviad have created the RAD specialty and the Avelo Pro in being able to accommodate the different styles that are going to be needed and required, really, to get the divers diving it. You know, so I think that's been really cool to hear.
And to echo up on that, I've also appreciated the way that the system and Aviad and Jay and the technicians and the team have been willing to make modifications to the physical system.
Yes.
Bonaire was the first warm water site. They came down here, our water was 31 degrees Celsius, so like 86, 87 degrees Fahrenheit. We weren't diving in wetsuits. The system really hadn't spent a lot of time being tested on smaller professional divers who don't wear wetsuits. And that's where the flotation back pads came in. And
Thank you.
Yeah, I was drowning. And we've gotten smaller harnesses shipped to us because of that. Because again, we're not wearing dry suits. We're not wearing 7 mil wetsuits. Our divers are smaller in circumference because of that. And we got the system in September. And since then, we have received packages in the mail with modifications for things that tailor the system to the specific needs of shore diving, warm water diving, and smaller diver diving. And it's just been incredibly appreciated to feel heard, that this is what we would like to make the experience better for our professionals and for our guests that are diving on the system.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your time. I did want to give one last thank you to Ross for being our model for our background on today's call.
Thank you.
That's on the Dwayne. That's one of the nice wrecks that they have out in Key Largo. The wrecks out there are stunning. It's a fun place to dive. So
and we had great dives.
Hopefully we get back out there on those wrecks. I'd love to get some more shots out there for you.
It's a deal.
Thank you all very much. Aviad, did you want to leave us with anything before we say good night, farewell?
You guys said it all. Do I actually need to be in the next webinar? We're good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everybody for attending.
It's great seeing you.